my name is Jo Rogers. I'm the CEO of Now Star Legal, and today I'm here with Jason Boyce. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Very well. Jason he is involved with Autologics and he is known for LawMade. He is somebody that we caught up with. I think the last time we caught up was at Legal Geek, and you were telling me a few stories. I think you were on stage at that point, or just after you got off stage. I know you've got some fascinating insight into the future of the legal world. They better be fascinating. And how change is occurring. I first came across you when you were working at Elevate, and I know things have changed since. Tell us your background as a starter.
Sure. So sort of back to the beginning of my legal career as it was. So I started out as a practitioner, actually, as a commercial litigator, doing high volume litigation for debtor, creditor, and bankruptcy work. So everything old is new again. That's probably about to become a growth area again. And I did that for 5 or 6 years in private practice with small firms in Toronto. I then went in-house at Xerox Canada, and that's where I like to say I grew up professionally, because it became apparent right away that I am a business person. That was, the executives recognized that right away and treated me as such. And at Xerox, I was responsible for the commercial litigation function as relates to their captive lessor, leasing all of their equipment, financing all of their equipment. So I was responsible for counseling on the credit side, but all of the recovery of that as well. So it was legal operations before legal operations had a name. I was all about managing the outside legal spend and increasing the business, the recoveries and the business outputs from that. And I did that for about 6 years, took a stretch assignment, became head of customer experience there, which was very much a stretch assignment. And then for the last couple of years, of course, I've been known for a couple of things. One is a company called LawMade, which I originally started with a business partner. Before there was a Dentons Next Law Labs or Barclays Eagle Labs, all this stuff. We actually started something called Legal X at Mars in Toronto, which was very much along that vein. And that's where I got the bug in and around emerging legal technology startups. That's before the explosion. So I sort of rode that explosion, all the while working as boots on ground in North America for Elevate Services for about 5 years. And continuing to run LawMade with fabulous clients like Thomson Reuters, LexisNexis, Air Canada, all up to the present, where I'm now involved with a company I'm very happy to be involved with. It's a UK-based company making presence globally called Autologics, which is a digital operations platform setting its sights on legal. They support, as an example, Eversheds Connexo. They are the technological backbone for that. And along the way, I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt. I'm very much a design thinker. And I'm also, business and legal, and I'm called upon to opine on the market quite often.
You've got a huge experience in this environment. I wonder whether there is because you said when you were at Xerox, people recognize, yeah, you're a business thinker. What quality was it that they saw in you as a business thinker? And then how have you changed as a business thinker since then? What attributes, characteristics have you embraced in the business context?
Yeah, I mean, so when I first entered Xerox, what they recognized right away was I wasn't a lawyer that was going to tell them, to give them the risks and then throw my hands up. I was very much, and the legal department often is the office of no, and I was never the office of no. And it's what enlightened legal departments shoot for. I was always like, let's find a way to get there. And that's what they recognized right away. And let's hit the balance sheet, which is very unusual as well. I was a profit center as a lawyer, which is extremely unusual, certainly the holy grail. I had perfect conditions because when you're doing a collections-based practice, the conditions are there for you to be able to do that if you're good at mastering process, technology and managing people. And so that's what they saw. What's changed since then, I would say, is whereas I used to be very much an intrapreneur, kicking and screaming, can very much finally call myself an entrepreneur as well. And those are two different things because of the risks involved. One is someone else's risk and one is your risk.
How have you found that?
Not graceful, not gracefully, I would say. And so, what everyone's got a theory on entrepreneurship and the like. And for me, what I've learned is, thankfully, I was already someone very interested in personal development and self-development. And you can't be an entrepreneur without that. But no, it hasn't been graceful at all. And what I've learned, but I've had lots of support, whether that's family or family and friends, which is huge. I doubled down on health and wellness, which is huge. But I've also had the opportunity to be around and work shoulder to shoulder with some phenomenal, and I just mean phenomenal, entrepreneurs, especially in the legal space, and just outright name them. Someone like a Liam Brown of Elevate Services. You can learn a lot, and someone like that is so gracious with his time and energy with the folks that he supports. So I've definitely had a lot to learn, people to learn from along the way, and that's been useful. And right up to this day, including the folks I'm working with now, we were both at. There are a couple of us that were at Elevate that are now involved with Autologics, and we've learned a lot along the way.
How does it feel being a part of what is effectively now, you're in a small, medium-sized business in the UK. What are the things, what wisdom are you passing on to the small and mid-sized business in this environment?
Could you say that again? I didn't quite catch it.
I was saying, what wisdom are you passing along to these guys at Autologic right now?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. And by the way, I'll just make mention of the fact that Autologics is very much a global business. It's just that they've started in the UK. I wouldn't want people to think that they service the UK. They actually, the US market, the North American market is obviously the bogey everyone is shooting for, and they're making inroads there. So I do need to make that point. But the wisdom I bring along now is there are a couple of things. Firstly, I've seen a lot of what works and what doesn't work in the market, especially as it relates to technology-led offerings or process. And so I bring a bit of that. The number one thing I think I bring is, at this point, having been in the space for a long time and been very lucky to have traveled globally on it, a lot of the wisdom I bring is a perspective that straddles different markets, different geographic markets, because they are different. When I'm in London, especially a week like Legal Geek Week or something like that, it's very different than being in other markets like North America, where you might get a glimpse of that now and again, but not always. The other thing the wisdom I bring is I definitely have, my career has, whether by default or designed, brought me across the spectrum in terms of having been a private practitioner, having been an in-house lawyer, having been a business executive, having been an intrapreneur, an entrepreneur, having been around a lot of startups. So that all folds in very nicely to what I can bring.
How are you finding things changing, or how are they finding things changing in this environment at the moment?
Well, Autologics is actually very well positioned for this environment for a couple of reasons. The first is that they'd been around for a while and had an established business. They also, their technology, they took 3 years to get it commercialized. So they were able to do that previously. And now that they've got a commercialized technology, it's all about continuing to grow and build use cases for their technology. It's a digital operations platform. And I gave a talk about a week ago on the idea of digital operations platform, and what I'd like to see happen in the market, generally speaking, is to get people away from thinking about legal tech as something you go A versus B, Coke versus Pepsi. They are a low code, no code solution. Increasingly, I think people are going that you can't buy a piece of kit every time you've got a business challenge. So overall, they're very well positioned. Even before the climate we're in now, they were well positioned, and they continue to be, because they've got established management, established tech, established tier one clients. And frankly, where is the market going? Where is technology going? Generally, they're in the correct space for that as well. We're headed towards broader digital operations platforms rather than point solutions or single purpose solutions. So they're in the right place at the right time.
Great. And you were mentioning the legal operators Twitter. Maybe we're just giving them, I can put it at the end, where you were giving this talk, because this was about a week ago, wasn't it? And you were talking specifically about digital ops. So if you want to watch that video, I will put a link to it at the end, or I'll put it in the wherever. If we connect on LinkedIn, then I will put it in the comment section at the bottom. One of the things that I hear you speak about a lot, because the change to the legal technology, right? There's a lot of change in legal technology, and you've been at the forefront of that. How easy has it been to be driving or to be supporting people driving the change in the profession?
Well, supporting people is easy. Being the one driving it would be a lot more difficult. So I've definitely played more of a supporting role along the way, and it's just I've supported a lot of folks, and at a professional level, it's very gratifying to see a lot of them succeed. Many of them have not, and that's just the nature of emerging companies. But if a company like Link Squares, I was around pretty early with that company, and they're now they raised $14 million in 2020, and they're headed towards a couple of $1 million in revenue and a good product. So it's been very gratifying to be in that support role. But anytime where either I or people I've been working with have put their necks out to try and be to try and lead or make change, it's been really it's difficult. It's challenging, and frankly unpleasant. A lot of the success I've had in my career, including at Xerox, was around being a change agent, around being someone that understands process, but also someone that understands how to EQ and the ability to make change. And it's never easy, and you can burn out. And so I've had those experiences. I've supported others through those types of experiences. It's not easy. You really do need to have it in your bones. Frankly, what helps the best is if you're disproportionately dissatisfied with the way things are. That's the biggest fuel there is, actually, to keep you going.
And how do you? I mean, I love these labels like change agent. Like, what's the thing that makes you a good change agent, do you think, in the legal profession? Because I think this is something people are wanting to kind of be a part of. Like, you talk about the T-shaped lawyer, and then there's other people, L-shaped, B-shaped, O-shaped. Tell me, is that related to change? Is that something that we need in order to change? What makes a good lawyer that is able to kind of embrace this new way of working and thinking and being?
Well, first of all, I mean, it takes awareness that if you're a lawyer of any vintage, you have to realize that you've been socialized. You've been socialized to think and act a certain way, and perhaps you've never even questioned it, and you've been socialized by the culture of firstly law schools, and then the cultures of wherever you ended up working for your vocation, and then especially the law societies, whether they be the bar association type or the regulator type. They've also socialized a lot of legal delivery. So firstly, it's realizing that you've been socialized. That's the first step. But to succeed as a change agent, what you really need is you definitely need EQ. You definitely need to be able to read a room, and not just in a singular instance, but over a period of time. Because where you will definitely fail in those roles is if you become noise, if you become one channel only, if you become the same thing over and over, you're not going to succeed. And you've got to meet people where you are. That's where change agents tend to fail. They've got a vision of the way things should be. I like to say, don't confuse your likes and dislikes for reality. So you've got to meet.
What do you mean by that? Because you might have just hit a nerve.
You've got to meet people where they are, and then you've got to show them value, and you've got to do it incremental. As much as everyone loves the idea of a moonshot, it's not the reality.
No, totally. That's really powerful, and I think that's business advice, not just for lawyers. That's just sage advice for anybody, particularly on social media platforms, and particularly on platforms where we're distributing information, and our wisdom is the useful one. But I think just to tie this together, I'm interested in how you are making the decisions that you're making right now. You as an individual, as a lawyer, as somebody who's taken that curve, the 180, like I say, from legal thinker to business thinker. How is your decision making working for you at the moment, right here on the earth, in this moment?
Yeah, no, I definitely love this question, because it's I'm a voracious, very voracious reader, and a lot of my reading interest the last 18, 24 months have been on this subject. I've really come to be very, very interested in decision making and bias. And so I've put a lot of effort in that. And once you start to study that, you start to think and act like it as well. So there's a couple of resources that have really impacted, influenced me. One is a website podcast sort of thing by a gentleman, actually, he's based in Canada. His name is Shane Parrish, and he runs a company called Farnham Street and has a blog. I think the blog might be called The Knowledge Project. A lot of what he's focused on is decision-making and bias and mental models. I've become very, very interested in mental models. And a lot of that actually at its root is from a lawyer turned billionaire, is Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, who's now in his 90s. And still, every time he speaks, it's worth listening to. He talks a lot about mental models and the lattice work of mental models. And I have found a lot of that very, very useful, as well as having, not to get woo-woo or anything, I've taken a real interest in Stoicism as well, not Stoicism from a stiff upper lip, but Stoicism as the actual philosophy. And interestingly enough, a lot of folks in tech have gravitated towards this as well. And it's the idea of Stoic principles that endure, especially in times of uncertainty. And what it comes down to, quite honestly, in a nut, is taking an assessment of what you can see and hear for sure, but also being aware of what you don't know and what's in your control. And that's what it comes down to, is focusing on what's in your control and what is not in your control. It's called the dichotomy of control. And if you focus on that, you might not get the outcomes you're always after, but you will probably get some level of equilibrium, and it's a framework that you can go back to again and again. So that's what I have personally incorporated into my personal toolkit, and I think it comes out when I'm dealing with others and I'm counseling, and quite often I think I'm looked to provide some sober second thought or some sage consideration, even where I'm not a subject matter expert on the knowledge itself. It's those types of principles serve you well. Second order thinking, third order thinking, that type of thing.
Awesome. I was actually going to ask you, because you said that health and wellness was something that you doubled down on, as something that you'd started really looking into. And I wonder how is this reading a part of that health and wellness, or is this business on its own? And what does health and wellness mean to you now?
That's a good question. I think they do all blend, but everything I just described, what I really strive for personally, and what I really admire in others, is clarity of thought and clarity of thinking. And so health and wellness is very related to clarity of thought and clarity and that type of thing. So you think better, you have better regulation of your emotions, your impulses, if you're focused on health and wellness. So that can be, quite frankly, vigorous and intense exercise. And when we last saw each other in October, I had run a half marathon in London, and it was fabulous. But it all blends: nutrition, hydration, and these days social interactions. It does all blend together. As much as we'd love to compartmentalize our lives, it's very difficult to do that. So it does all blend. I'm looking for clarity of thought throughout my life. So health and wellness definitely impacts that, because we can all fall prey to subconscious inclinations, urges that we're not even aware of, and they can cloud our thinking, and thereby our decisions, and thereby our actions. And then all of a sudden we wake up and we're not necessarily in the place we want to be, professionally, personally. So to me, it's vital. It should be the first thing you think about in the morning.
Yeah, it's funny, you were just saying it should be vital, and I just said, you don't feel vital. Like, there's a feeling of vitality, isn't there, with health and wellness and putting that first. And
yeah,
I get, okay, one final thing. You've kind of alluded to a lot of these things. You mentioned Six Sigma, you said Stoicism, you talked about Charlie Munger. Any other books? Because that's what I'm getting from you. Like, it sounds like you're an education nut. Like, anything else you'd be like, right, for business, law, and tech, these are the places to go.
Yeah, those are some good ones. I would say some habits that you should form are you're your own librarian, you're your own curator, and the main, something like Twitter. What's in your Twitter feed, if you're someone that does that, or your social media feed or whatever, hugely, or your media diet, quite honestly, is hugely impactful, and more so than you realize. So curating those things in the background is an important thing to do. Even where you get your news. I'm a fan of a site called Quartz, and it's qz.com, because it's, number one, it's global, and number two, it's not bombastic, it's not editorial, it's not political. So I find it very useful. A lot of other things that I definitely have been interested in reading a lot. As I say, a lot of it tends to be variations of the same theme on mental models, thinking clearly, that type of thing. One thing I'm definitely trying to get away from is a lot of the Pollyanna wishful thinking type of literature that's out there, because we seem to be inundated with it. The rise of self-development as an industry has meant a lot of folks are, they're grasping for something, but they're forgetting to think independently, and they're forgetting the key point is to act.
I totally agree with you. This has been really, let's just say I've made more notes during this conversation. I'm like, oh, right, yeah, must make note. Because for me, this is the beauty of talking to people. Like, there's a fresh thinking and being able to talk to people that, I admire in the industry, but that I also kind of don't necessarily see, because we always see people in their professional context. I don't always get to understand what personally people are going through. So this has been really helpful. Jason, thank you so much for being a part of our legal stories today, and for offering us some insights, particularly around your SME experience. I'm excited for you guys at Autologics. I hope that you guys do really well, and I have no doubt that you will. It couldn't be the most perfect storm for you guys. I will leave us there with a little bit of how do we get in contact with you? What's the best way for us to connect with you? Tell us.
Sure. So in the Autologics context, I'm at jason.moyes@autologics.com. So that's an easy one. I am also on Twitter, which is at Jason Moyes. I also run a site. It's rather dormant at the moment, but it's one of my pet projects to revive it in and around LawMade, so lawmade.com. There is material of interest there. At the moment, it's not the easiest to navigate site, but I'm definitely found there. But yeah, otherwise, I'm at Jason Moyes on Twitter, relatively DM open, and always happy to chat people and have discussions like these.
You're on LinkedIn as well, and the talk for legal operators is run by Colin.
Yeah. Oh my God, his last name, it's a blank. Colin. So it's run by Colin. You'll have to put it in, but Colin was the head of legal ops at Twitter, and he's this, as I say, this group he's got going. It's one of the more right on point, Jermaine. If you're interested in nuts and bolts of how to legal operations, he's done a fab job at building it out.
Great. Well, Colin, we'll make sure we put your full name in and at least a link to where to connect you later. Jason, thank you so much again. Thank you to everybody that's watched. If you've enjoyed this topic and want to hear more about legal stories and SME insights, then you can subscribe. And otherwise, I look forward to see you on our next interview. See you guys.
Bye now.